The death of Pope Francis has been confirmed, but what lies behind this event may be far more significant than it appears. He was the last on an ancient prophecy's list, and this could signify the beginning of the end. From the moment he appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, Pope Francis, embodied a symbolic force unprecedented in the Vatican. The world watched this serene-faced man who eschewed the traditional red papal cape, declined the golden ring, and opted for a simple silver one. He chose the people over the throne, simplicity over opulence. This alone spoke volumes about what was to come. Francis was the first Jesuit pope in history, hailing from an order renowned for its intellectual rigor, discreet political engagement, and commitment to social causes. He was also the first Latin American to ascend to the papacy, a pope from the end of the world, as he introduced himself. His origin alone shattered centuries of Eurocentric tradition in papal selection. Choosing the name Francis wasn't merely a tribute to the Saint of Assisi, it was a declaration of war against luxury, institutional hypocrisy, and a church that, according to many faithful, had lost touch with the poor and oppressed. From the outset, his papacy had the scent of reform and the taste of controversy. Many loved him, many others rejected him. His words were gentle, but his stance was firm. He embraced lepers, washed the feet of Muslims, and visited prisons. He spoke on climate change, exclusionary economies, and even broached delicate topics like civil unions for same-sex couples, previously unthinkable for a pope. Francis undeniably made history. Yet within the marble walls of the Vatican, not everyone was pleased. A conservative faction accused him of heresy, doctrinal relativism, and excessive modernization of a faith proud of its immutability. Some claimed Francis betrayed the Catechism. Others believed he interpreted it with humanity. Beyond opinions, it's crucial to understand that Francis was also the first pope directly associated with a millennia-old prophecy, the prophecy of Saint Malachy. He was said to be the last on the list, the one who would reign during the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church. This detail, overlooked by many, gained weight among scholars and Christians attuned to signs of the end. Whether he was truly the last pope echoed among priests, theologians, and even journalists. But the way he led his papacy, breaking traditions and facing internal resistance, only deepened the mystery surrounding him. It was as if he was setting the stage for something greater, something yet to come. Moreover, Francis's relationships with world leaders, secular institutions, and global movements raised another question. Was the Pope paving the way for a spiritual leadership of universal reach? A unified religion, bound by the language of love, but free from traditional doctrinal boundaries. This openness also raised alarms, especially among scripture scholars who see the rise of ecumenism as a hallmark of the apostasy predicted by the Apostle Paul. Wherever he went, Francis left a legacy of rapprochement. But could this closeness also be a sign? Perhaps Francis's greatest distinction wasn't just what he did, but what he represented. A milestone, a turning point, the end of an era, or the beginning of another. Understanding this context helps us see why his death might not be merely a tragedy, but also a prophetic signal. In the 12th century, an Irish archbishop named Malachy reportedly had a vision while visiting Rome. According to historical accounts, he saw a long line of popes, 112 in total, each described by a short, enigmatic motto. These phrases remained hidden for centuries, but surfaced in the 16th century in a manuscript that changed how many viewed papal succession. Most traditional scholars considered these predictions dubious or even apocryphal, but the accuracy of several mottos drew attention. For instance, John Paul II was described as de labore solis, from the labor of the sun. Coincidentally, he was born during a solar eclipse and died during another. Benedict XVI was Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive, symbolizing peace and the Benedictine order. Coincidence? Perhaps, But when Francis's name appeared as the last on the list, many paused to reflect. The motto accompanying this 112th Pope is the most ominous of all. It's not a simple title like the previous ones. It's a prophetic sentence. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. This description seems straight out of the book of Revelation, but there's a detail few notice. Francis's name isn't Peter, nor is he Roman. So why do many still identify him as the last? Because the prophecy doesn't state he will be named Peter, but that he will act like one, like the first Peter, guiding the people through the storm. Considering today's climate, polarization, moral crises, abandonment of faith, the storm is already upon us. Additionally, the motto doesn't assign a number to Peter the Roman, suggesting he wouldn't be a new pope after the 111th, but a kind of final manifestation of the papacy. Some theologians believe the prophecy ends with Francis, and any subsequent leader would be something entirely new, perhaps even dangerous. A deception disguised as hope. Francis, despite not bearing the name Peter, was one of the most active popes in engaging with Rome and its symbols. His relationship with the Eternal City, his focus on centralization, and his discourse on shepherding during crises intriguingly align him with the prophetic figure. More than that, his pacifying stance amid scandals, abuses, and faith collapses was, in a way, an act of resistance, a bid to keep the flock united as the spiritual world fractured from within. It's noteworthy how this prophecy hasn't been forgotten by the Church. On the contrary, it's been silenced. Rarely is it mentioned in pulpits or seminaries. This raises a troubling question. Why hide something that, according to its proponents, has been fulfilled in over 90% of cases? Could the Vatican hierarchy have recognized the risk of publicizing a text that, if true, signals the end of ecclesiastical authority? The idea of a last pope has always haunted the corridors of spiritual power because it suggests that the very structure upheld for centuries may be on the brink of collapse. And when this notion starts to seem real, with the end of a pontificate that broke so many paradigms, discomfort turns to fear. That's when the prophecy ceases to be mere historical curiosity. It becomes a warning, an alarm for those attuned to the times and seasons. For those who read the scriptures with spiritual eyes, the echoes of St. Malachi's prophecy eerily align with the texts of Daniel, Paul, and of course Revelation. If all this seems to be fitting together with surgical precision, perhaps we're witnessing, in real time, history bending to prophecy. If you're finding this revelation as eye-opening as we are, now's the perfect time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That small action helps this message reach even more people who, just like you, are waking up to something much bigger. In the book of Revelation, John, exiled on the island of Patmos, records visions that defy human understanding. He speaks of beasts, trumpets, seals, and a woman riding a scarlet beast. But one image stands out for its direct tie to a very specific setting. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. Revelation 17:9. For centuries, interpreters have linked this woman to the city of Rome, famed for its 7 historical hills. This city, home to the heart of the Catholic Church, is portrayed as a powerful entity, adorned in purple and scarlet, embellished with gold and precious stones, mirroring the ceremonial garments of the Church's highest ranks. Often referred to as the Great Harlot, this figure is said to wield influence over the kings of the earth. And when you consider the Holy See's diplomatic clout, international treaties, and its central role in global conversations, the comparison becomes hard to dismiss, especially given that the Vatican, despite its tiny size, commands tremendous global influence. But the chapter doesn't stop there. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. and the eighth belongs to the seven and goes to destruction. Revelation 17:10-11. To many scholars, these kings don't just symbolize political empires, but spiritual or religious power structures, which leads to a chilling question. Could the eighth king be a global spiritual leader emerging from the same tradition as the others, but with a fundamentally deceptive nature? When you place St. Malachi's prophecy alongside these verses, a disturbing connection begins to take shape. If Francis was the last on the list, the next person to fill this role, whether officially called Pope or not, might represent this eighth king. Not necessarily a pope in title, but a spiritual figure who steps into the global spotlight with a new kind of influence. Picture a leader who speaks of peace, unites all faiths, promotes justice and love, yet beneath the gentle rhetoric, subtly introduces teachings that drift from the core gospel. The Bible warns that the final deception will be so convincing that even the elect might be misled, if that were possible. On top of that, the Vatican itself has been undergoing structural changes. Francis was a reformer, no doubt, but did he unintentionally pave the way for someone even bolder, someone ready to take the global stage and completely reshape religion's role in modern society? Global bodies like the UN and the World Economic Forum are increasingly engaging with spiritual leaders. This growing appetite for a unifying moral voice could align perfectly with the figure described in Revelation chapter 13, a beast that looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon, a religious authority with the power to captivate entire nations. In that context, the death of Francis wouldn't just mark the end of a papal era, it could signify the dawn of a new age, one that was prophesied. Not the continuation of the papacy as we've known it, but the rise of something else, charming, unifying, and dangerously deceptive. The prophecy doesn't predict a horned devil, but a subtle lie cloaked in kindness. Perhaps the bells ringing today in the Vatican aren't just tolling for the dead. Maybe they're signaling the beginning of a prophetic new chapter. And for those who know the scriptures, the time for simply observing has passed. Now is the time to discern. The death of any pope causes worldwide reverberations, but with Francis, the ripple feels different. This isn't just about mourning a spiritual leader. It's the end of an era. And with it comes a question that no one seems ready to ask aloud. What or who comes next? Traditionally, the death of a pope activates an ancient and secretive mechanism within the Vatican, the conclave, a centuries-old ritual where cardinals from around the globe gather to choose Peter's successor. But this time, there's an unsettling undertone. Will there even be another pope? Or are we witnessing the collapse of the papacy as we know it? The answer isn't straightforward. Francis had already been signaling deep structural changes. He decentralized power, gave more authority to regional bishops' conferences, and often spoke of a new way of being church. To many, these statements sounded like preparation for something bolder, a transition toward a global spiritual leadership without a traditional Roman center. This power vacuum could be the fertile ground from which something new and potentially frightening emerges. In times of moral chaos and spiritual confusion, people tend to seek strong figures, compelling messages, and easy solutions. Without a clear traditional leader, a new figure might arise, one with charisma, empathy, and a unifying vision. The Apostle Paul warned about this exact scenario in his letter to the Thessalonians. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction. Because Thessalonians 2:3. This rebellion, or apostasy, has been unfolding for decades. Watered-down doctrine, moral relativism, and an ecumenism that seeks unity at the cost of foundational truths. With Peter's chair now empty, what stops a new figure from rising? Not as an official successor, but as a spiritual leader accepted by all faiths, respected by nations, and seen as a peacemaker. This matches exactly the kind of figure Revelation describes as having power over every tribe, people, language, and nation. While the faithful await a new conclave, the world may already be witnessing the first steps of this transition. The Vatican, while remaining silent publicly, is certainly strategizing behind closed doors. Leaders from various religions are regularly meeting to discuss a humanist global faith. The message has shifted, no longer focused on salvation, but on universal brotherhood. It all sounds noble on the surface, but through the lens of Scripture, something feels off. The Bible speaks of unity in spirit and truth, not political alliances masquerading as religion. What looks like a harmless interfaith dialogue might in fact be setting the stage for something much more profound and much more dangerous. As days pass and the solemn bells of the Vatican still echo through global headlines, many are starting to wonder, are we watching the final pages of history turn before our very eyes? The Pope's death wasn't just a religious moment, it sent shockwaves through spiritual foundations and rattled how many view the prophetic timeline. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus gave a haunting warning. When you see all these things, know that it is near, right at the door. The Matthew 24:33. This isn't a vague prediction. It's a call to recognize visible, undeniable signs. And when we examine our current world, rising ecumenism, moral decay, growing secularism, global crises, and spiritual confusion, it all starts to feel like a prophetic countdown. The succession of the papacy, in particular, takes on a central role in this unfolding scenario. If St. Malachi's prophecy is accurate, and Francis was indeed the final pope on the list, whoever comes next won't simply mark a new chapter, but rather a complete break from the established cycle. Something unprecedented, something Scripture might have already described in striking detail. In his letter to the Galatians, the Apostle Paul warned of a different gospel being preached, one that seemed authentic, but was a subtle lie. He also wrote in 2 Thessalonians about a powerful delusion that would cause people to believe what is false. Doesn't this sound eerily similar to a time when truth is fluid and faith is marketed like a product? Moreover, the Roman Church itself, now weakened by the absence of a leader, could be ripe for transformation, not into a more spiritual institution, but into one shaped by political agendas and global ideals. What once seemed like a fringe theory, a single religious system aligned with the modern world's values, is fast becoming reality. Meanwhile, in churches across the globe, there's a noticeable shift. Preaching grounded in Scripture is fading, replaced by emotional experiences and feel-good messages. A generation is being raised on entertainment disguised as worship. The signs are everywhere, but are we truly seeing them? There's no time left for complacency. The world is changing too fast. To some, the death of a pope may seem like just another headline, but to those who know Scripture, it sounds more like the blast of a trumpet, not necessarily the last one, but perhaps one of the final warnings. Revelation outlines a world where religious and political powers unite, where worship won't be a personal choice, but a global requirement, where those who don't conform will face persecution. That might still sound distant, but it all begins with subtle shifts. And one of those shifts could have been the passing of the man holding the final piece of the old system. In this new age, it won't be enough to simply be religious, it will take discernment, and that only comes through the Word, through prayer, through watchfulness, through eyes that remain open. Because the final deception won't come with horns and flames, but cloaked in irresistible peace, well-meaning unity, and a leader who appears as light. Maybe the trumpets haven't started sounding just yet, but make no mistake, the bells of the Vatican have. And for those who have ears, now is the time to listen. You don't have to understand every prophecy to be prepared, but you do need to be ready. Because if this really is the final generation, there won't be a next chance. If you believe the end might be near, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, share this video and comment below. Do you think Francis was the last pope? Let's talk about it. God bless you.